Hello everyone, it's the Old Pro here, Mike Harmon, with another chat segment of the Old Pro's Table website. I've got at the table today Mr. Johnny Ferrell, one of my very best friends, as I said in the introduction, just one of the iconic professionals that I've run across in my time in the business. A world-class professional, but a world-class person as well. I think you're going to enjoy it. John's been running the show here for almost 30 years. At HarbourTown, certainly one of the top spots in all the South and in the country itself. And I am just thrilled to have him here with us, Johnny. Absolute delight.
Old Pro, thanks for having me.
More than
Hope
welcome.
I can live up to that billing.
Oh, I'm sure you will. Tell me, give everybody just a quick overview of your early career. I know you're a Mass boy and came to Hilton Head in the early 80s, but quickly go into that. We don't, they can read about that somewhere else.
The short version of that is I moved here in 1984, and at the time Hilton Head Island hosted a Champions Tour, which is then called the Senior Tour event at Shipyard Golf Club. It hosted a PGA Tour event here at HarbourTown Golf Links. It hosted an LPGA event at Moss Creek, which you're familiar with. Yeah. Hosted an NCAA tournament. The Golf World event was at the the Hills course at Palmetto Dunes. It hosted an AJGA event. It was all the major tours were pretty well represented. I didn't want to go further south because there was no seasonality at all. There was a man by the name of William Deck, who was the director of golf at Shipyard, who I very specifically wanted to work for. Yeah. They at the time were hosting.
Wonderful professional, wonderful guy.
Great man, yeah. and we have stayed in touch through the years, and he's a dear friend. I wanted to work there, and he had a reputation for hiring. He was very selective, and he took the development of his professional staff very personally. He really believed in investing in them, and consequently me, because I got a position with him, and I was charged with getting clubs from the back of a trunk to the back of a cart without incident. That was my original charge, was as a cart attendant.
I did that. I remember that. That was fun. I enjoyed those times. Those were fun.
I didn't like it. I loved it.
Get some tips too.
It was payday every day. It was Hip National Bank, and
Hip National.
He had created a culture there, though, of just a wonderful group of people, and we had a fraternal. The people that you do serve those years with, as you well know, you become connected for life. There's a bond that you forge. It was very fraternal, and Bob Patton was there, and Keith Goodacre was there, and lots of dear friends of yours and mine that have done really neat stuff in the business, and are dear friends. And so that was where I kicked it all off.
My wife was there.
And I worked with your wife, Linda, in the golf shop, and as I've explained to you, we had an instant connection where I felt a closeness to her. We could talk about all kinds of different things outside of off the links, about life and about just our journeys, and I really came to depend on her as a confidant, and even though I don't mean to overstate it because it was a very short period, but I knew that I was with somebody very special almost instantaneously when we met.
Amen to that. She is very special, no doubt.
Yeah.
She loved that time. That was we had just gotten down, and I was just slinging clubs on carts, and we had been traveling full time. I played the tour. I just lost my card the year before, and in '82, and we came down in '83, so we were about a year ahead of you. But that time was one of the best times of our lives.
Oh yeah.
It was simple. It was easy.
Yeah.
You had money, as you said, in your pocket.
Right.
But you didn't have a lot to spend it on.
No, we joke about it and say we're living like multimillionaires with about $8 in our pocket. And that's still, some of that holds true.
And dinners, we went out in large groups. You played golf together back in those days. It's a little different now. We'll talk about that, the culture itself of the business, but a marvelous time. Now that led to hiring for.
Well, I went to Oyster Reef for a short period of time, and it was bought by a private individual. A guy named Ron Bruno bought it, and he was going to convert it to a private club. And he hired a guy who had just won the National Club Professional of the Year from Pittsburgh, a guy named Gary Ellis. And they asked me to come as the lead assistant there, and I went from basically shuffling carts to being the first assistant almost overnight. It was a very quick transition. So I got on the fast pace to getting my Class A, and then I started at Oyster Reef, was there for a couple years, and by virtue, really, Hilton Head Island Junior Golf Association needed a chairman, and I volunteered to chair it. And the chairman of the Hilton Head Island Junior Golf Association gets invited to the board meetings for the chapter. And by virtue of that, I got to meet the Mike Harmons and the Chip Pellerins and the Kerry Corbetts and the Tim Mosses and the Skip Malicks and the movers and shakers in the local industry. And I developed a relationship with Kerry. Then I started to play in the local events and things of that nature. Then when this position became available within Sea Pines Resort, Kerry asked me to come down, Kerry Corbett asked me to come down and interview to be the head professional at the then called the Plantation Golf Club. And I was 26 years old. And very fortunately, I was given that opportunity. And when I started there, I was the youngest guy on the staff. And
That's rare.
Pardon me?
That's rare.
Yeah, it was kind of unique. And Kerry said, oh, with the exception of Rosie Shreve, who was our buyer, who was a lovely lady, who was still a dear friend. And then Kerry kind of took me under his wing, and I got to come into Sea Pines and have been here ever since the late 80s.
And what about here in HarbourTown? We're in the Heritage Room at this magnificent facility. It's just a beautiful site and just one of the more impressive places you can ever go to. But so you came here when?
So I was at the Plantation Golf Club. I had 36 holes of semi-private resort golf, and I was there until May of 1991. And I came over to HarbourTown in 91, right after the Heritage of 91, and have been here since then. And
almost 30 years.
Yeah, and it's been with the company almost 32 years.
32 years, yeah.
And 30 at HarbourTown. And I hope it's another 30.
Well,
I don't like it, I love it.
I know there's two different worlds here, as everyone knows. You've got your day-to-day resort traffic that's just, teeming with people all the time. And then you got a 2-3 week run of tournament.
Right.
One of the best tournaments on the PGA Tour. Often voted as one of their favorites.
Right.
Every year, that's way up on the list of the players' selections as the best place to come to. Talk, how do you switch gears, one, and then tell us about running the tournament.
So a big part of my report card for the tournament is the retail sales operation. With this past year being the most unique in our tournament's history with the COVID situation, we had no fans, but it is such an honor, really, to be involved with a PGA Tour event, and it's not just because of the household names. It's not just because of the Greg Normans and the Jack Nicklauses and those. It's the staff that goes with the tour, the PGA Tour rules officials who have become dear friends through the years. It's the lead agronomist, Blaine Cooper. It's Slugger White, and it's Dillard Pruitt, and it's the gentleman John Much, and all these.
Really make all that happen. Yeah.
And our planning is not really a 2-week thing. It's a 53-week-a-year thing. Yeah. And as soon as that last putt falls from the one you're just conducting, we commence with the planning for the next, and that includes most notably a glad we did, wish we had. Steve Wilmot and the Heritage Foundation, we don't rest on our laurels. We're constantly looking for ways to make it a better brand and make it a better experience for everybody.
Wonderful guy. How long has Steve been doing that?
About the same number of years. Our careers have coincided in a lot of ways. And he's, you'd be hard pressed to find a better TD in the country. He's just a cool guy.
You still want to keep doing it?
He does.
Good.
He's got. He hasn't lost any velocity on his fastball either.
Yeah.
He's still got it.
No, he's a special person. Talk about that. Are you closed 2-3 weeks out? When do you close?
So we closed for the week before, just 1 week. So Masters week. The original tournament was in '69. It was in Thanksgiving. It was November. Right. But since we've been on our April date, which is the week after the Masters, we're closed Masters week, and that's when our superintendent fine tunes and he brings all his heights of cuts down and all that business. And then the site prep. A lot of what I am involved with is the site prep interactions.
Site prep being like stands. And
everything from the golf. The golf course, our superintendent handles pretty much exclusively, but there's a dotted line to each of us. We all look after one another as a great team concept. knowing that we have dependencies. So Jonathan Wright, who is a wonderful guy, has been our superintendent for 15 years, and he spent a number of years as the assistant to Gary Snyder. Jonathan is just one of the great advantages to having a superintendent like him is he plays the game.
Yeah.
So you see a lot more when you play than you do when you're riding around in a truck.
Sure.
So you become sensitized to what we're looking for, green speeds, how things release, consistencies in things. And
Little stuff.
little stuff.
Details. You're going to miss riding around in a car.
Yep.
No, you'll see.
So when I say site prep, we're talking about all the venue, because you're throwing a party for 30,000 people. Or 30,000 of your closest friends are coming to see you in an international TV audience.
Correct.
So we want to have it appear like we knew they were coming, right?
Well, you do.
I hope so.
You
Like,
do.
we
Year
don't
in,
let up.
Year out, you do. I got to enjoy it once. I qualified.
Yes, you
Back,
did.
10, 15 years ago, 15 years ago, I guess. One of the real thrills of my career is I was 50. Jay Haas was older.
You were 50 when you played.
Yeah, I was 50 when I qualified in the section spot. And what a delight.
Yeah.
I think that was 03.
You were playing a soft draw back then, if I remember.
I was playing it down other fairways and bringing it back in over
Some
the
call it a
trees.
hook. I mean, it was.
Oh, everybody, this is an old friend here that he knows that hook. I had that baby on.
It's a soft draw.
Back before metal with wood heads, I could
And you
make
also-
that thing do a backflip.
Your viewers would be curious to know that you never carried anything higher than a 56-degree sand wedge, which I'm not sure if that's still the
No,
case.
still the case. Same one. I think it's the same one I got during that tournament. I'm not sure.
Regrooved, maybe.
Regrooved, yeah. I can't change. I can't find one.
Well, why would you, the way you pitch it?
I
That's
can't
the
get rid
strength
of it.
That's the strength of your game.
Well, that was always, I was, always a great chipper of the game. I mean, chipper of the ball and driver of the ball. I was always a good driver. Well, that's a good combination to
Play here,
Play
especially
almost
here.
anywhere. That keeps you in play and it gets you around the green.
Right.
The iron play would come and go, but that was a real highlight for me. That was the great Eric Kennedy, who was working for me at the time, now a pro up in Philadelphia. He had T-shirts made up, and he had my old tour picture. I had hair out here, in the '80s, and he had T-shirts made up. Says the old pro returns to the tour, Thursday, Friday.
Off on the weekend.
He didn't have 4 days. He had 2 days, and he was riding.
Well, Eric was pretty handy that way.
Well, he was one of the funniest people on earth.
No question about it.
He's marvelous.
On paper and otherwise.
But to be in that arena as a player, it's one thing, but to have to run it all. I mean, there's just so many working parts.
Yeah.
Every moment of every day.
Right.
Has it gotten easier through the years, or is it still just demanding every day? I mean,
Yeah,
every year.
that's a great question. Yeah, it has. It has from the standpoint that we're not going around as many corners blind as you were before, but you almost need to, as much planning as you do, you can plan for everything. Right. But when you have things out of your control, weather related,
right.
And when you're managing hundreds of staff members, there's always going to be something that was unanticipatable that you need to and how you respond to that is critical. So my staff gets tired of me using some of these worn out stuff, but we look at the challenges that come our way that are unanticipated as opportunities in disguise. So there are opportunities for us to untangle.
That sounds like John Ferrell.
Yeah, I might overuse it. I've been accused of it, but I still find that it holds water. So my thing is,
do you find yourself handling those problems easier now as you've gotten older?
Yeah, you like to think that
Probably
the list
more
of unanticipatables has gotten shorter, right? Mm-hmm. Just by virtue of our experience. And when you what's a critical point, and not just when you're hosting a PGA Tour event, but any day, is putting people in the right positions where they're most likely to succeed. So you don't want to put a right fielder at shortstop. Yeah. So I have to make sure that our talent assessment is that we put the people in the proper positions where they're highly likely to succeed. Yeah. And I really enjoy that. I don't like that. I love that. And then when they do succeed, I love to celebrate that with them. So it's a great joy. People say, "B, you must be exhausted and you're glad it's over." I couldn't disagree more. I wish we had another one, and I can't wait for the next one.
Right.
It's not I have to, it's a more of a I get to situation where we love it.
Well, you do. That attitude is what allows you to be who you are, which is easily one of the best professionals I've seen. Tell me, how did you handle this year with the COVID? Obviously, you're sitting on inventory that nobody's here to buy.
Yeah.
Did you go online? Did you get rid of it? Did you get out from under it? Or?
So, well, we had plans relative to a lot of different circumstances. Whether our merchandise that was specific to the tournament, we've put in storage, a great amount of it. Now, since then, since we reopened, right, we closed for almost 3 months, and we reopened in June 20th in time for the hosting of the event. We were the second event on tour after Colonial. Right. And since then, we've been open every day, and our retail sales and the golf model nationally, not just here in Sea Pines, but in Hilton Head, but golf rounds are gone through the roof.
Right.
The demand is very, very high because it's something you can do outdoors. There's a feeling of safety with the COVID circumstances, but we're so busy, and our buyer really is a sharp guy. He's not just a retail guy. He's a PGA guy. He gets it. A guy named Benji Boyder.
Sure.
He's really good at what he does. Just won the Carolinas PGA Merchandiser of the Year, and really should have. It was a wonderful honor for him. You know, we've been selling through at such a high rate. We're almost chasing merchandise now, as opposed to having to store it. We're having to go find merchandise.
Was there a specific? Is there a specific tournament merchandise, or is it all pretty much the same logo?
It's all relative to logo. So during the tournament, we sell very well the weeks before, the week of, and a few weeks after. The shelf life is pretty brisk with regards to the RBC Heritage logo merchandise.
Right. Now, did you have to rat haul that, or are you selling that right now?
We're selling it, but we have a small representation of it in the shop year round.
Which you can carry
over
into next year, too.
Yeah, but we had
is it dated? Not dated. Good. Yeah.
But we had a 5,000 square foot retail tent that did a lot of volume. When you have 30,000 customers a day, and if you put the proper products in front of them, we lost all that this year. Right. So that product was predominantly RBC Heritage logo merchandise. Right. So a lot of that will be reintroduced next year. This year, we did do a small tent down in the yacht basin area to accommodate the folks that were down.
That were there.
Because we had no spectators on the golf course. They stayed very loyal to that bubble concept.
Right.
Not even players' wives were on the golf course.
Really?
None.
Had to be weird.
It was very different. Very different.
What'd the players say? That was
Well,
the
the
second
strongest
term of the year. Some of them didn't even play in the first, probably. What did they have to say about?
They wanted to get back out. They were anxious to play. You know.
Right. What about the people though? With no people around, did they care?
Not really.
Compete,
they wanted to compete amongst themselves, and the fellowship that they have, and the congeniality. They were fantastic. They were delighted that we were open. Yeah. It was very unique to us because we've never had a tournament on exclusively Bermuda grass. Yeah. So we had transitioned. We airified in April.
Yeah.
Now we're typically in April. The Heritage, as you know, haven't played on your own. The Heritage is always played on overseed, and there's some brisk, windy, cooler days. Well, we had high heat and high humidity and 0.2 of an inch of rain with no wind. Right. So the scoring record was beaten, which you could have predicted. It's a lot of it's weather based.
Yeah, that time of the year is soft, and you give them soft. It doesn't matter what they have. Yeah, they're gonna just zip it in there. How did you handle like the locker room? Did they stay here? Were they bubbled? How did they handle that?
So they had the opportunity to come in. They didn't lounge or hang out in the locker room to the extent that they usually do, but they still came in.
Right.
And the locker room is large enough. It's a beautiful locker room. Right. It's large enough to where you could still do your social distancing requirement in there.
Good.
So the players would still come up, but
they reduced the field? Was it smaller or was it the same? Larger.
Considerably larger. Matter of fact, the locker room we had to expand to an additional supplemental room for the sake of the tournament. But the players still came up, but the vendors who traditionally came in and stocked the lockers, they had to ship the product to players off-site.
Talk about, you touched briefly on the game itself. Obviously, we're still in the throes of the pandemic in some fashion or another. South Carolina's a lot more open than
Yeah.
New York or Michigan or something. But talk about what you're hearing. I like to ask the people I'm interviewing about what they're hearing, because I tend to hear the same thing you're saying, is the game's exploding.
Yeah.
It is something that can be played. I think, I don't even know that we won't even see the full effect of this for 2 or 3 more years.
We don't
with
know.
people who are just coming into the game that just get hooked, you know, as well as I do. You only need to hit a good drive or hole out a wedge shot or make a 60-footer.
That hook is-
and you're hooked. And so many family members were moved into this game because it was about all
Yeah.
they could do, especially up north.
Yeah.
Talk about that. You hear about, like, some of the private clubs have gotten hurt. Daily fees and resorts seem to be doing extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, but you talk to some of the guys in this community. Belfair played 9,000 rounds one month this summer. I mean, the demand, because it's a thing you can do outdoors. Our property owner play is way, way, way up, because people who used to rent their homes to people that were to travelers.
It's true.
So they took
They were
homage here. Yeah, they came here, and they're playing more and more golf. I like your point about more people playing and setting that hook. So, you get out there and start enjoying it. You don't want that to go away.
Yeah.
There's other things that we're not sure what will happen. People are really enjoying leaving flags in the hole.
Yeah.
People are really enjoying no rakes on the bunkers, where you smooth things over with your foot.
Yeah.
And you move on, because our pace of play has been dramatically improved.
That's cool.
We focus on it as a company pretty aggressively, our pace management, but pace has been faster, so people are just finding out that they don't need to devote all that as much time as they previously had to.
Yeah.
What else has been cool is, the use of alternative formats. People are coming out and playing. Not only are they playing at different times of the day, or everybody used to think when you're retired, they think you got to play between 8 and 10. Well, what's wrong with 2 or 3 o'clock? We call it a sunset cruise. Go play 9 holes before dark.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
There's nobody else out there. You can whip it around. You can have fun. So people are thinking unconventionally, and my hope is that they'll stay with the game and they'll enjoy it the way you and I have been lucky enough to.
Yeah, it's the game's always been magnificent, but it had a hard time competing with everything else. And when there was nothing to compete with, all of a sudden, you could have an influx of people that you see generationally for. It'll surface in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, we don't know
what
the
happens
residual,
there.
right?
Yeah, it's talk about the business. We talked before we got on camera with the PGA itself, the business of golf. Are you getting great young kids still? I've said in my introduction that you and I have exchanged a lot of great kids through the years, that I may have been approached by somebody that had a great kid and I just didn't have a spot, and I'd call you.
Yeah.
I'd call Bobby Patton at Long Cove. And
Yeah.
we were able to swap those guys in and out. Are you still getting those great kids?
We are, but to be completely honest with it, it's been unique, and with the uniqueness to that subject with regards to who's getting into the business, I have found that there's a great opportunity for young men and women who are getting into the business to establish themselves as leaders, and I say this because I have found that there's not a lot of traffic in the extra mile, if you know what I mean. So the young man there seems to be a lot of minimalists who say people want to do what's asked of them, but not a great deal more. So when someone does, well, I did what you told me to do. Did you? I got no prize for that. But someone who wants to do more,
Right.
because the golf business has gotten to where there's so many specialists now, where you got a teaching pro and a merchandiser and an outside operations manager. Well, when we were cutting our teeth, we were the teaching pro, the merchandiser, the
Did it all.
We flipped hot dogs, and we didn't maybe cut cups, but we would have if we needed to.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking for when I'm recruiting is somebody that wants all of it, and that someone that wants to seek out more than what's being asked.
Can you find that
So-
person in an interview?
Yeah, well, no, we do.
I mean,
Yes
we
and no.
search them out. We
Yeah.
tend to find that out. But you're sitting down with someone. Is there something that they say? I think especially the professionals that watch this would want to know that. Can you find that person? Is there something you ask? Is there something in the processes that pulls that person out?
The easiest answer would probably be no. You'd have to do all of the above. You want to be a good listener. I check references. I find out, I want them to go play 9 holes with another member of the staff to find out how they tick. And we try and ask open-ended questions where they speak more than we do. Because when you find someone that does want to, you find somebody that's a great player, but they can't do public speaking. You find somebody that's a great public speaker that can't break 80. But when you find somebody that wants all of it,
Right.
you grab them. There's times where I'd rather do without than do with someone that is probably not a good fit for us, if that makes sense. And the same goes for, I'd rather, if I don't have a position available and a diamond in the rough pops up, I'm going to find something for them.
Correct. You find the spot.
Find a spot because I don't want to lose them.
Well, and you're fortunate that you got a big staff to handle that too. That's harder for a private club that doesn't have a big staff.
It is hard.
You can
It's
find
hard for us too.
Find a spot, but when that kid comes along, you want him, and you'll figure that out, or you'll shuffle him off to me, or I'd shuffle him off
Right,
to you.
right.
And that you want to get them in the business. David Ingram, who I sent to you after he graduated from college, now at Mirabel in
He
Arizona.
went to Ohio too.
Oh, he's just stunning, but he needed to get in the door. I would love to have had him with me, but I sent him to you, and now he's just
Doing
had a
great stuff.
tremendous career. So that's,
Well, there's
those
that
are the
fellowship.
people.
That's our fellowship where we rely on one
Right.
another,
Right.
and hey, I got a guy. Now, one time I called you and said, I got a guy, and you said, well, tell him this is when he starts, and I said, well, do you want to meet with him? He said, John, is he my kind of guy? You know what I'm looking for. You used to say, I like a guy that looks good in his clothes, that can play.
I could play. Yeah, I was always had to have a player.
You got to. And I equate it to when we're in our interview, our guys are asking me, I said, are you working on your game? They're like, yeah, but I haven't had time. You better make time. Because do you know of any accountants that can't add?
That's a starter.
Yeah, you better.
a starter.
You should be an expert on all things golf. And I want you to be able to go out and play with our membership. And I'm not claiming you got to be a world beater.
Correct.
Well, it doesn't hurt.
Correct.
But you should be well versed in how to play the game.
Well, I've said, and you've probably heard me say this in different arenas, I can teach a kid how to merchandise, how to teach, how to run operations, how to handle politics, how to handle books, how to handle a shop, show them the numbers. I can't teach them how to shoot 66.
No. Well, you
And
can try.
that guy goes out there and shoots 66 with your membership. All of a sudden, he's given a measure of respect far greater than the next guy.
Yeah.
And,
From both sides of the counter, too.
yes,
His fellow professionals and the membership.
correct.
Yeah,
And now he has to go on and be able to do all the other stuff.
right.
And that's the person you're talking about. That's the person you're looking
Yeah.
for, who has all those skill sets, that looks for the more.
More, I want more.
Not looking to do just
And
what
you can't be
ask.
looking at the clock,
Right.
especially early on. But I say that as though we're like these tyrants where we make everybody work all day. We don't. I want them to have balance.
Yes.
I want them to have fun. I want them to have healthy relationships. I want them to
Yeah, a
do
lot of
some.
them are married.
I do want them to do some volunteerism. I mean, everybody that works in Sea Pines, and thankfully Kerry Corbett, our vice president and a PGA member, he agrees with me 100% that they should all have some type of give back to the community, whether it be via their church or via the Junior Golf Association.
Right.
Volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club, something that you give back on a non-payment basis to express your thanks for how you've been.
Talk about that. You're deeply involved with the junior program here at Hilton Head. Talk about it. I mean, it's been an incredible project through the years.
Yeah, I can trace back some of my good fortune was as a result of my involvement with Hilton Head Island Junior Golf Association. And I can't do enough I'll never be able to pay back to the game what it's done for me. So any opportunity I'm enjoying now a great deal is working with the First Tee. I've been lucky to be on their board of directors.
Big facility that they built.
Yeah, that's a wonderful facility. It's well led. We've got an executive director that's a wonderful man, Pat Zuck. He's a dynamite guy, and the board composition at the First Tee is awesome. Everybody brings a different perspective. It's not all like-minded. There's a great diversification on the board, and we're
So
teaching.
important.
Yeah, we're teaching kids. Our focus is to, we'd like you to shoot 66, but we want you to take your hat off and you stick your hand out too.
Yeah.
We want you to say yes, please, and no, thank you. Yeah. And a lot of what we focus on with our junior golf, both with Hilton Head Island Junior Golf Association, with the First Tee, with the Hilton Head High School golf team, men's and
Where
women's,
you've been coaching?
Yeah, I help Ron Grant and I help the AD there, but I'm behind the scenes. I just try and help them when I'm asked to assist. But there's a guy named BJ Payne at the Hilton Head High School. He's a football coach there, and my wife and I were expressing our thanks to BJ about his leadership and what an example he was to our son Thomas. And he stopped us and said, whoa, whoa, whoa. He said, I get no thanks. And 10 years from now, if he's a good guy, if he's a good father and a good husband and a good corporate citizen and a good dude, he goes, that's when I find out how I did.
Correct.
And I'm looking at BJ going, God, I want to hug this guy right now. He's a wonderful man, and that's who you want leading. So I learned from BJ Payne at Hilton Head High School, and I hope to continue
Well,
to.
I'm sure he's learned from you too. One of the finest people I've met. And that's part of our friendship. We share not only a commonality of passion for this game, and have been afforded the honor of representing two of the finest facilities in the world. But we talked about earlier, we share a sad part given the difficulties of the health of our wives. And you have been a tremendous source for me as an outlet. And I hope in return I have been as well, because we've dealt with the disabilities of illness in our family lives that we grabbed hold of and call it an honor, and go on to be better men as a result, a better husband. And while it's difficult, and when we were talking earlier, you used the word lonely. That is a lonely fight sometimes when the difficulties are so dramatic. But you have handled yourself so exquisitely, and I wasn't going to not take this opportunity to let people know that, because these are things we don't talk about. Our dearest friends know about it. We don't have to say much about it. But you have handled yourself in extremely difficult circumstances with Jane, as I have with Linda, and we just consider it joy. And that gets to our faith as well, where we've learned to honor the Lord in this. And while difficult, we know we're growing, as men. And I think you've just done a marvelous job there. I know you don't want to talk about it much.
Well, the only thing I would add to that, and I appreciate it, but is that she's the one that's the brave one. She's the one that.
She's a little sick.
Yeah, but she's teaching me about grace under fire. I mean, she's showing me that I'm bigger than this. She's showing me I'm fine. How are you doing? Because I'm going to keep on. Because she's fighting back. Right. She's devoted to me, to her children, to our daily life, and she's not laying down there's no pity party. She's showing me how to handle tough stuff. Yeah. I'm pretty darn grateful and blessed to have a life partner like that, and I know I don't want to get it too
I know. But
soupy, but I'm a lucky duck. That's the best way to put it.
And your attitude in this has just been stellar in every way.
And yours as well. And we have been able to confide in one another, and
yes.
That's pretty valuable.
And there's not many people that have these. There are a ton of people that have these. These are almost all-consuming. We become the chief cook and bottle washer, in so many ways, and still have to come to HarbourTown, and come to Secession and put on the A game, and not let that get in, and that's demanding, and it takes a special person, and you are that. And I just wanted to let you know how much I and so many others understand and recognize what you've done there. So enough on that. Talk to me. You had the tournament back in August. You said, was it
June.
June? And we just saw DeChambeau win the Open.
Yeah.
And I know that he tried to drive the first hole here all 4 days and played it 3 under, if I heard that correctly.
Yeah.
Talk about your thoughts on that as we get into kind of the game, because you're around the game at a level that's that very, very few, even the great clubs, the Wingfoots and the Oakmonts of the world, only see a tour event every
Right,
7
we get to
years
see it every
or
year.
something. You see it every year. You're around these people, so your thoughts on the philosophy of the game, not just the equipment and the ball and the everything else that people are talking about, but it's actually how these guys are thinking. You're inside that locker room. You're inside with them. Talk about it.
We'll start with the locker room. So when I got here, in the locker room, you would see an ashtray, a keg of beer, a plate of brownies, donuts. There were no directions to the fitness trailer.
Correct.
This was in the late 80s and early 90s, right? At the same time, coincidentally, there was no netting on the back of our driving range. Why? Because we didn't need it.
Correct.
Nobody hit it off the back of the range. This year, Bryson DeChambeau was flying it out of the ballpark
Flying it over it.
to the 8th hole, and it became a risk where he couldn't have been nicer about it. Now, another thing about
Did you have to tell him no? You can't hit balls. Yeah.
well, I didn't want to. What happened was I didn't want to
That's
over.
interesting.
I didn't
I hadn't
want
heard that.
Oh yeah, it wasn't just him though. It was others too. We had a little bit of a downwind situation there, and the tees were back, but people were flying it over the fence, and it became a health hazard. So I didn't want to underreact to it, and I didn't want to overreact to it. So I thought, if we're talking about personal injury here, where somebody's going to take one of these in the eyes, I can't really overreact. So I called Steve Wilmot, and I called Slugger White, and I called Dillard Pruitt, and I called them and said, meet me, because you can't explain that. You have to be there. I said, meet me behind 8 green by 9T, which they did, and they saw the poof, poof, the balls coming in going, whoa, we've got a situation here. Yeah. Now, we could have waited till somebody was hit, and there was a personal injury, and then had an appropriate response. But they all the guys I just mentioned.
Sure.
So immediately Dillard, who's one of the finest guys in golf, right? He immediately went to the tee and said to everybody, "Back, boys, it's downwind. We got a dangerous situation." All the players were compliant. They were very good.
They probably were thinking about it too.
Some of them knew what was going on, but they were unaware what was on the other side. Right, so we educated them about that. We said, flight the ball down, please use the netting to your advantage, et cetera. And they did. So now we're looking at what alternatives we have to keep the balls in the ballpark.
Wow.
But Bryson, he called here in 2016, and his agent, and said, could I speak to Ferrell? And I said, yes, sir. And this is he said, Bryson, by virtue of his win in the U.S. Amateur and the NCAA championship, he's in the Masters. The week after the Masters, he's going to turn professional at HarbourTown Golf Links. So he wants to come up after playing at Bay Hill and play some practice rounds at HarbourTown. Would you play with him and show him around? And he is going to be, at the same time, he's going to be interviewing caddies while he's at HarbourTown. And I said, well, I'd love to play with him. And so Bryson came up, we introduced ourselves, and he said, over here, I'm interviewing a guy that's going to be caddying for me. I turn around, it's Mike Hicks, Payne Stewart's caddy in the 1999 U.S. Open at Pinehurst. When Mike jumped into Payne's arms, that was Mike Hicks. And Mike has been a longtime friend, and I don't claim to know him better than I do, but I know him well enough to, we call each other by name. So it was great to see Mike. So we went out to play. I carried my bag. Mike Hicks caddies for Bryson. Bryson is on the phone with his agent and others while we're playing, and was a bit distracted, but he was telling me about he was asking me for shot lines and aiming lines, and HarbourTown is kind of known for that. It's not about brawn so much, which is his thing, it's more about brains. So I was trying to give him the aiming lines and the strategies that are typically employed by the players. And we were having great conversation, but he was a bit distracted, and I'll tell you why that's relevant. We get to the 9th tee, I'm spending more time with Hicksy at this point. And Bryson gets off the phone, he goes, all right, what do we got here? I said, well, when the pin's back a center, you can drive it down in front of the green as far as you want because you got that afforded that luxury of letting it hit and release. But if the pin's short at center or front, you back off with a 5-iron or something like that so you can spin something, hit a full shot in. And by the way, you're 2 down. And Bryson said, oh, can I swear on this?
Yes.
He said, oh, shit, are you that guy? I said, you darn right I am,
I'm keeping cool.
Mr. NCAA and
He's
U.S.
just a
Amateur.
baby. He's 22,
He's a
23.
kid.
Yeah.
He's a skinny kid. And I said, you're 2 down. And then he said, and didn't we decide we were playing for lunch? Because we were going to stop and come up to the locker room and have lunch. And he goes, damn you. He couldn't have been nicer. We really had a nice time. We went up and had lunch. Mike Hicks joined us. They weren't a good fit.
For whatever reason.
No idea why.
Yeah.
But then we went and played the back 9. Then the next day played again. And then ever since then, when he comes here, which he does, he's always quick to say hello, and he's very pleasant. Right. He works. I mean, he works really hard. He's got a team around him, and
he seems just almost myopic in his approach to the game and to life. I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's probably very regimented. It's all thought through, every detail.
Yeah.
I heard him say the other day when it was late in the final round, he was going back and forth with the caddy, and he was playing a ball from the rough, and they decided on a 7 or 8 iron or something like that. And he said the yardage, and then he said 10 o'clock.
I heard it.
And I thought I knew immediately what he was doing. That's how he thinks half, 3/4,
Measured.
or full.
It's all measured.
There's probably 4 in there. There's probably 9, 10, 11, and 12. Interesting. Very.
He's measured.
Very. I'll tell you, a unique
I
one
just hope
after-
it's always a virtue, not a vice.
Well, I think it's going to change, and what I'm about to say, I think it bears this out. I think it will change the dynamics to some degree. When Mark Anderson, our boy, and a kid I've known since he was 13, now playing, he just missed getting his card one year on the Corn Ferry by 2 spots, finished 52nd. And we looked at his stats over the winter, and he made 22 of 26 cuts. He had the 16th best stroke average, but he finished 52nd. And Jeff Patton was coming through the office, the great teacher out of Atlanta, and I showed him these stats. I said, what will these stats right here make on the tour? And he looked at this, oh my God. He said 3-4 million. But on the Corn Ferry, that's not good enough. You need to finish in the top 3 or 4.
Depth.
Well, we changed that philosophy, much like he thinks, to being far more aggressive. And if it doesn't work out that week, you just miss the cut and you go home, go on next week. Instead of cashing every week, which is how we've played the game for 100 years. Mm-hmm. He's they not just him, Dust, DJ, and all that have done basically the same thing. They'll just bomb away. If they can cover from the woods, if they can cover from trouble, with even if just a bogey, that's okay. They don't want to make double or triple. But if they're on, they're driving greens and they're chipping the greens or playing from 25 yards as opposed to 100, 150, and they're going to win. But all that philosophy, though, just made me say something to a junior I thought I would never say. I played with one of the members' kids the last week at the club, and it was Saturday, and he was in the hunt, and this kid hits his ball legitimately 360, and he's just as far as this guy. He's playing at High Point, Ryan McCarthy, Jimmy McCarthy's son, out of Long Island. we're having lunch afterwards, and he's not been playing. He's not a world beater. He's playing on the team. He's about to graduate, and it's not a philosophy that I'm sure his coach would want. But I said, you probably need to study what this kid does, DeChambeau, because there's reasons why he would go for something, and there was reasons that he wouldn't go for something. What are those? Get into the regimen of what he does strength-wise and utilize what you have. He drove it 10 feet from the green at 18 at Secession, from 1 foot off the back marker. He drove it to the fringe.
Jeez.
So he's not won state amateurs. He's not done anything, dynamic that would promote him to maybe think about playing professionally. But I actually told this kid, I've never done that. And that is a bit of a sea change. That's a different
because
animal.
you and I were taught to hit it to the position that gives you the highest percentage chance of shooting the lowest possible score. Right. So it was calculated, but in a different manner.
Right.
But in those days, we were playing wooden-headed clubs and things. It's completely changed. And the athlete today, I used to be able to talk about locker room. I used to be able to sit in my office or in the locker room, Mike, and look at the driving range, and I could tell you who each player was by their body type and their swing style. Mm-hmm. But now all the swings, the athletes that they're attracting now are the guys that are built this way, and that their swings have been developed by TrackMan and launch monitors versus dig it out of the ground.
Yeah.
And they're ripping it. It's not just
Oh,
Bryson.
yeah. No,
There's a lot of guys that are
no.
they're bombs away.
And they're taking those chances.
They're risk takers.
and
But they're
no
short
one-
games, though.
Well, they're
Bryson's
this
short
kid's got a
game. Do you
great
see the way he pitched the ball at Wing Foot?
Yeah.
You've played Wing Foot.
Yeah.
I've played Wing Foot.
This is as hard a golf course as there is.
It's hard.
I mean, Oakmont's harder, I think. That's probably the second hardest.
Yeah.
Because you can play under the hole at Wing Foot and still get a score in. Can't do that at Oakmont.
No.
But
Carnoustie, Wing Foot, Oakmont consistently ranked as some of the hardest.
Brutal. But you're right. He played some beautifully deft touches into those quadrants that they have now. I heard something last week that I'd never heard before. They should regulate the tee to no more than 2 inches.
I heard that too.
That's interesting. I would have never thought about that. Everybody's talking about the ball. I don't know that. I'm not keen on that. I like the free enterprise system. That if you make a better widget, you
Use it.
use it.
How about his stat that he's using a putter that's got a higher loft on it than his driver?
Yes.
Bryson DeChambeau.
Yeah.
His putter is 6 degrees of loft because he does a pretty dramatic forward press.
The driver's 5.
Pardon me? His
Driver.
driver's 5. But he also.
But
he
see, if
also
it
is
was only
using
2
this-
inches,
Yeah,
he couldn't do what he's doing right now.
His
which
launch
is-
would be different.
Yeah.
He'd figure it out. Though.
Now someone said, I brought that up to someone, and they said he threw it on the ground, or the other day, and hit it 300 off the ground just with a 3-wood or something. So, but it's not 380.
No.
Be
You saw where he
interesting.
hit it on. You saw where he hit it on 18 at Wing Foot, over the corner.
Oh yeah.
Davis was paired with him. Davis Love was paired with him this past year in the Heritage, and he came in. He said, "It's not just long; it's really straight.
Straight. Yeah.
Really straight."
Doesn't it? He looks a little bit like Mo Norman.
He's
got
got
those
this,
arms kind of
well,
extended and.
You remember Don Trahan
Oh yeah.
that taught here, and his son DJ, who's having a bit of success again on tour.
Yeah.
Don used to talk about it's a game is a game of angles. The fewer, the better. And by the bit larger muscles, by virtue of their size, are less likely to change angles. So his whole thing about this, as soon as you start putting all that in there, your deflection rate is considerably higher.
Yeah.
So he's using that strategy with his, and you look at the way these guys pitch the ball. You always did that, though. You didn't have a lot of wrist. You had remember Toad?
I kind of hooded.
You hood it.
Yeah, I do like what Phil does. And
But now these guys, the way they
Zinger do
pitch
it.
it, there's a firmness to their left wrist and their position. There's a straight back, straight through, which immediately addresses direction, right? Then it's a matter of just how hard to hit it.
And he's just, and being a theorist, he's just figured out all of these different positions to get me 60 feet, to get me 80 yards.
You don't think people are watching, though? I'm not surprised to hear you say you brought that to your lesson tee with your young man from High Point, because there's people watching this. He gained 40 pounds of muscle.
Yeah. I don't think I would have ever thought as an old-fashioned traditionalist that I would ever say that. Now, there's not 5% of the people that probably have the weapon that this kid has in his bag to be able to hit it 360. But
I just hope his body holds up, because Tiger gained a lot of weight through his workout regimen, and it broke down.
I think they take that chance, certainly. I remember Duval was number one, kind of heavy, and he trimmed down and hurt his back and was never a factor again.
Not again.
I'm sure he's factored that in. He's not going to ever have to work another day of his life.
No, he's
more than
good.
likely. So that's in the end what you go out there for. But it's intriguing to me. It's a new day to some degree, and we incorporated it into Anderson's.
Well, he's long now.
Well, he's long, but only average. He's 300 plus, but I mean they're driving at 60 past him. This kid would have hit it. This kid that I played with the other day, McCarthy, he would have hit it 40 past Chicken.
Past Mark.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
Mark.
stunning.
I heard Mark say that recently. I tell you what, I played with Bryson Nimmer and Andrew Orshak, and then they had a friend who went to Northwestern, who was a young boy from the UK. And Andrew had 248 to the hole on 15 at HarbourTown, which is really a three-shot par
Sure,
five, if there's ever been one. It's not so much the distance of the hole as it is the trees. And you got goalies up there.
Yep.
The tour players used to say you got Manute Bol and David Robinson up there swatting balls away, right? But
Was that a utility or was that an iron?
he had a 4-iron up over the trees onto the green. So I said to them, hey, this is as long as you play with, and they said year round. He's as long as there's anybody on playing.
Which?
Andrew Orshak.
Horseshoe, yeah.
He bombs it. He's
That
long.
Nimmer's a really good player.
Nimmer's just played the Q series, just went first, 11th, second in 4 consecutive events. And the second was in a playoff. Shot 18 under for 54 holes. He's a wonderful young man too.
Yeah, is he? I've not been around. I think I met him once. I don't. Well,
Yeah.
those are, and Hilton Head's turned out quite a few players.
Well, there's
in the
3,
last-
4 right now. We got Mark, of course, who belongs out there. You got Bryson, who's proven that he belongs. Andrew, who's still in college, and then you got Will Miles, who just graduated from USC, who had a great career at South Carolina, and head-to-head did very well against Nimmer and Orshak.
Right.
And those 3 guys, and Mark, 4 guys, and there'll be others coming, but they're all so talented. And what I like about them is the character of those guys. Those are good dudes.
Oh, they're
there.
good people. I have to tell you,
Including Mark.
you were talking about the range earlier here, and it's one of my favorite stories about Anderson. And I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about this. And he had shot a zillion under to win the Players as an amateur when he was still at South Carolina, and he gets an exemption into HarbourTown. So I want to be with him on the Monday, the first day of practice rounds. All I want to do is just walk along. I want to see, not how he's playing, could care less. I wanted to see how he reacted when he met other players, because comfort is the key. Are you comfortable in your skin at the highest level? They all have talent, but can you get the most out of your talent in that situation? Some can, some can't. And it's comfortability. How do you move? And I've always thought he just had an extraordinary attitude. He's different, far different than me, which tells me how much I sucked. But when I listen to him.
So we've heard of him?
Yeah, it's just so cool. But he meets Els and Davis and so many people in the locker room, and I'm in the locker room with him, and I'm watching him, and he looks pretty comfortable. He's interacting. He's not struggling to carry on a conversation. We go to the putting green. He meets a few other people. We go to the driving range. Got Furyk, Chicken, and Davis, and Jack Lumpkin's here, and I've known him since the Georgia days. Just watching him hit balls, best workout I've ever seen in my life. Davis. I don't even know if he won that year. I ought to research that, because that workout, it was the sound. It was the sound of the ball. Was just
That's always
extraordinary.
so different 1 week a year around here is that sound.
That sound. I mean, it's just
That ball's compressed
so
from the
flush.
middle of the club face.
So Jack and I are standing 20 feet behind him, and all of a sudden, Chicken starts rifling these what looked like a 4 or 5 iron into the net over on the left-hand side. And I watched him hit 5 or 6 balls, just burning something not 20 feet off the ground. And I finally said to Jack, let's go see what this knucklehead's doing. And I walked over and said, Bud, what are you doing? He goes, Pro, if you hit one of those poles, it makes the loudest noise.
It does. He's right. It's a ding sound
Now,
that people love.
A person who's playing his first tour tournament isn't trying to make noise if he's uncomfortable. I knew right then that it was something special. I'd seen flashes of it at other times, but it was on your driving range.
Yeah.
That the reality of
And
that
he shot
really
60
began
to get in. He shot 60 at that Players Am.
63, 60. 123, the final 36. He never had any trouble going low, that's for sure. But I'll never forget that range,
Well,
that
you'll
shot.
never forget how comfortable he was, that he was there. But how long has he been out there, though?
Well, he's been hurt twice. He's broke both ankles, and
Right.
he's 32, so he's really like 28 as far as his tour age is concerned. But he's strong. He's fit. He's just coming into it. I have said all along. I told him. I said, I'll be there for 2 days of your career. The day you get your tour card, which I was, walking along with his mom. And first time, they kind of rotate in and out now. And day you tee it up at Augusta, first round.
Oh, good.
He'll win. He's not afraid to win.
No, he's not afraid of going
He's
low.
very
He's comfortable.
talented. He's all too good. So, all
Does
right,
he play to the fat of the green? You see Tiger talking about that for the first time in his career. They used to say there was no pin he was afraid of, but it seems like he's playing high percentage stuff now. Give his putter a chance.
I don't know. He doesn't let you in.
Right.
He doesn't talk much. He's wonderful that way.
So when
It
he's
took me a
home,
while
he
to-
plays at
He
Secession.
fishes when he's home. He just wants to fish. He's got his captain's license.
Oh, so he does. He spends a lot of time on the water.
Yeah, a lot of time on the water. A lot of time. He's so talented. I mean, he could not play for weeks on end and just go out and shoot 65. He works hard. He just works on timing, but I've never helped him with his mechanics. Andrew Rice helped him a couple of years ago. That really kind of got him. Just cleaned up one little thing, and it helped him, and he hadn't really slowed down since. I would like 125 this year. I think if he gets exempt, he'll probably play 5 years, never lose his card. He'll make 20 out of 25 cuts and retire. But he's very quiet. He doesn't talk about much with Meredith, his wife. He just you don't. And I learned very quickly not to get in the way.
Yeah.
And I didn't teach enough to help.
Well, you've
him.
been a mentor to him, though.
Yeah, just more as a friend than anything, and obviously bringing him along at the club under our junior program. Just cranked out some really good players now. There's a kid named Bruns over there now who's one of the top 2, 3, 15-year-olds in the state. So we'll hear more about it. But that's been a nice program, that academy program. But no, I knew enough to stay
Leave him
away
alone.
from him. Leave him alone. They're too good. I always like to wrap things up with a couple of specifics. Favorite courses in the U.S. Give me 3, 4, 5 of them. And it's okay if you say HarbourTown.
Well, my unbiased, I'm definitely biased, and I make no apology for that. It would be HarbourTown from the standpoint that there's 18 great holes, and I like the thought-provoking. I like the cerebral. And the reason the tour players have ranked it as high as they polled anonymously 80 tour players and said, "What's your favorite course on tour?" And we were the second vote getter, and we're consistently in the top 2, 3 in that exercise just because of the shot values.
Right.
Yeah, and we have 3,500 square foot greens instead of 65 to 8,000 square foot greens. We're 6,900 yards instead of 7,800 yards. We're unique. We're a Wrigley Field or Fenway Park.
Yeah, I've heard you say that before. That's pretty cool.
It's
that's
just
a
we're
great way to
smaller.
look at it.
We're
I
more.
like that.
You got to look at the whole location before you hit your tee shot.
Yeah.
I like that. So HarbourTown, and this was before I came to work here, that I felt that this was one of my favorite all-time golf courses. You'd be hard pressed to find a better golf course than Wingfoot, which I played with my two sons, 2 years ago, which was an absolute joy. Last year I played Augusta with my youngest son, who's playing college golf now, and to walk those fairways with him was like it's like a priest saying a mass at the
Yeah,
Vatican.
I can see you,
You know,
in tears on that one.
it was tough. It was wonderful. I'm more about who I'm with versus where I'm playing.
Sure.
I think, you know, there's a 9-hole golf course in Georgia called Riverfield at Clio, Georgia. That's one of my all-time favorite places in the world to go play golf. I just,
It's a great place to hang.
it pushes my buttons. It just, I like the feel. I like the ownership. The guys that own it, the family, the Exley family are just wonderful people. But, you know, to go, I've been lucky to play a lot of really cool places, but I've never really found a golf course that I couldn't find something good about.
Sure.
What you've done at Secession is, to me, one of the finest golf experiences you can have. And I've been able to play St. Andrews and Augusta and the Country Club in Brookline and a lot of the great ones.
Right.
But Secession, the night before you're going to play Secession is Christmas Eve to me, because of Tully and because of Mike and because of Crummy and because of Earl and because of, you know, it's the
Experience.
Mary, the girl that made the great fried chicken.
Oh yeah.
What was her name? Mary.
Yeah, Jenkins.
So,
Mary Jenkins.
the back porch.
Sure.
You know, so it's not just 1 through 18 that comes
No, that's
into
right.
the measurement of a great golf experience. It's the whole experience.
No doubt. That's where we've
And
been.
who your host is,
fortunate.
who you're going with.
Sure. And who's in the group? That walk. There's
Yeah.
the beauty of the walk. You've established a wonderful walking
Yeah.
program here.
Yeah,
And
we
you
prefer
just-
it. Our ownership, who are some of the, it's almost as though, and not to change the subject, but our ownership here is, it's almost as though, Mike, lightning has struck twice in the same place. Charles Frazier's vision was legendary, and it's been copied all over the world, and that's pretty well documented, how brilliant it was and insightful it was. But now to have this ownership who respects the game, that doesn't want GPS in your carts. They want you to walk when you play. They don't want you to change your shoes in the parking lot. You change in the locker room. You play 19 holes, not 18. You go in afterwards and you have some banter about the tee shot you hit on 12. And
Like zip up and run down the street and play another one real quick. Yeah.
they're just traditionalists who respect the game. They want you to play. They want firm, fast greens. They want good, They want good quality food. The things you hear about all the time is a reasonable pace of play, good fast greens, good food, good friends. Everything else will take care of itself. And they're committed to that. So we're so lucky.
But that's the traditions of the game. You and I, we could go out and play a golf course that had gravel greens. It would not matter.
Not if you're with the right
We were
people.
2 other people, and the 4 of us are just laughing and cutting. It wouldn't matter. Sure, it's always better to play Augusta or
Right.
HarbourTown. But that doesn't really matter.
No.
It doesn't have to be immaculate. It doesn't
No.
have to be in perfect condition. It's never bad to play those, but that's about the game, and that's the traditional side. And
It's just
and-
gravy. That's all gravy. If you get the good
yeah,
stuff.
if you get to the one of those, like you're walking along with your sons at Wingfoot, well, that's a special day. Walking around Augusta, there's nothing like that.
No.
Nothing.
No.
But so is just walking around.
The Country Club of Pittsfield, Massachusetts,
Yeah, don't.
where my father,
Where he played. Beautiful.
and my father was the guy that all the caddies used to always want to get, even though he was a 20 handicap, all the caddies wanted to get him because he was good company.
Right.
And
A
I'd
fun
hear,
day.
I'd hear the
A fun
caddies,
day. Yeah.
I'd hear the caddies saying, "Boy, I hope I get Dr. Joe."
Well, it's not easy to incorporate that traditional element into a resort. It's not easy. Pine Nurse has done a pretty good job of that, but it's so much older and storied anyway that it's easier to pull that off probably. But I do find it's not that easy to pull off, and what you've done here is a real plus. Now, we were able to do that at the club because it started that way.
That's where you've always been.
You're ebbing and flowing all the time between making money. You got to make money, but if the caddy program may cost you some money, I don't know.
It does.
It does. I would
But
think,
it all boils down to, as everything does, and that's why Secession's had the successes as it has, and you won't allow anyone to tell you this, but it's because of Mike Harmon's commitment to what you were. And benevolent dictatorships are typically, if the dictator has a clear vision of who they're going to be. But our owner here, He is so committed to having a private club golf experience at a daily resort golf course that he has put his money where his mouth is. He is committed. We have
Impressive.
Pro V1s on our driving range. We have cloth towels in our carts. We have walking unrestricted. It's not just about a money grab for the golf cart fee. You want to walk, you walk any time of day. We'd rather you walked with a walking caddy.
Correct.
That's the way the game was meant to be played. He is so committed to that.
That's Mr. Goodwin.
And his son is
His
our
son's-
chairman,
yeah.
Matthew, who is loves the game, doesn't like it, loves the game, respects the game, likes to play it, likes to practice, likes to talk about it, likes to study it. He knows a lot more than he thinks he knows about course design and about course improvements. So we're continuing to work on our golf courses, not making them harder so much as just making them better.
Marvelous. But
So
that's
he-
rare, though, Bud. You know that. That's rare. It almost invariably comes down to the dollar. You know, and that's where we miss.
Well, you get the
we
dollar.
talked
If you do it
earlier.
right, the dollar will take care of itself.
Exactly right. Couldn't say
So-
it any better. We've said that many times, actually, in our times together and with many other guys who think the same way. You take care of the member, you take care of the client, the revenues will take care
Right.
of itself. And take care of your employees.
That's the other thing that we're Mr. Goodwin and Matthew, our chairman, is about. You know, when Hurricane Matthew came through, he came through and said, we were closed for 30 days, completely closed operation. And Matthew said, why don't we pay everybody on your staff, regardless of their position, as if they had worked the entire month? What they would, now, if they were a waiter's wage, caddies make a waiter's wage, $2.58 an hour, because all their compensation is in the form of gratuities.
Right.
Round them up to a minimum of $10 and make sure that they're whole. I got a chance to show them how much they mean to us.
Yeah.
That's
That's
who I work.
impressive.
That's who I work for.
Yeah, that's marvelous.
You kidding me?
It's so rare.
It's so rare.
It just doesn't.
That's who.
And it's
That's
so
how they
sad.
roll.
That's what creates the environment that you have. That's what creates the warmth that you have. That's what we were talking about Bobby Downs, who runs your plantation area, or the
Beautifully.
36 over there.
Yeah.
People remember him because he's going out of his way to make them feel comfortable. Remember that they were there 2-3 years ago, or their son's name or their wife's name. I mean, that's just a.
And he doesn't
all-out
do it because he's
professional.
getting paid to do it.
No, it's
You
just who
know,
he
you
is.
know about
Yeah,
who he
yeah,
is.
yeah.
You talk about
Yeah.
a good dude.
We were schlepping carts together at Palmetto Dunes.
Were you guys good at it?
Sure.
Very.
Yeah, but we had a lot of fun too. We had some cold beer.
Well,
back
that's
in
what
the
we're-
back
that's
of the shed.
of
You
course-
know,
of
drinking
course you
cold
did.
beer at 7 o'clock at night.
That
putting
fun
carts
thing is
away.
that fun thing's underrated.
Pocket full of money. Before on courses, I know you've traveled some overseas. Talk about that. What do you like about overseas? It just hits what we just said to a large degree. It's so simple.
Yeah,
It's so simple.
it's so different than it's really different than
Oh, it
American.
is.
When our membership would say we're going over, but we could, if we don't take caddies, we can save this amount of that. It's like, no, don't go then. I mean, go get the caddy.
Yeah.
Stay in the villages. And when you pick a place to go after golf, which is a big part of the golf experience in Scotland, Ireland, is listen to your caddy. Find out where the caddy's going, because they're going to show you where to party with the people.
Oh, yeah.
And you want to go to the town.
No doubt about that. And they'll be there too.
They'll be
They'll
there.
be there
You'll be
for
sitting.
you can buy 'em beer.
But you'll be singing a ramble on my God. You'll be with them, right? So, my kids used to say to me years ago when I first started going over, and I haven't been a fraction of the number of times you have, but when they see how excited I get by it, and they're like, "What is the deal?" I'm like, a golf professional. I used this earlier, but it holds truth. A golf professional playing at St. Andrews or at Troon or Carnoustie or Western Gales, or you pick one, right? Is like a priest being asked, would you please say a mass at the Vatican? I mean, it's that much of a religious experience
Special.
to go. It's a different game, and I don't like it. I love it. So I go.
St.
every
Andrews,
ch-
you've been to.
Yeah, a number of times. Yeah.
Nothing like it.
No. On that
Nothing
stand on
like
that first tee.
Nothing like it.
That's a special place. Going into the
Muirfield.
R&A, Muirfield was a
Extraordinary golf course.
underrated. I think it's
Oh, absolutely.
really good.
Oh, I have a number one. You can talk about Turnberry, you can talk about Dornoch. You know, they probably fit in the same category. Carnoustie's the hardest, but that doesn't necessarily make it the best. But it's
It's good.
2A, you know,
Yeah.
it's right there with those guys. And many of the people I take over think it's the best. So I would never dog it. It's one of my favorite places to go. I got a lot of friends there. But there's nothing quite like the old course at all. You know, that experience, that finish. I was over there the last time I played it. It was a festival Saturday, and it was a day like this, 70 degrees, bluebird skies. The whole market streets closed off. Ferris wheels. I mean, there are throngs of people in town. And you know, busy days, what it can be like coming in on 18. And there must have been 200 people on the tee box watching us tee off. And I had not played particularly well that day. I was not pissy, but I wasn't. But I don't know, something clicked right there, and I just hammered a drive, and it was into the wind. And I get it just across Granny Clark's wine. I mean, literally 2 feet over. Well, there's throngs of people going to the beach. I mean, there's so many people. It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it. I've been there 40, 50 times. And I'm this far over, pins right, just you know, center right, over near that shelf that feeds in from the right. And I've got probably 150. It's a little uphill and a little against the wind, maybe 140, something like that. And I take a little chippy 8-iron. Well, when I get ready to hit, there's 50 people around you that stop, because I'm literally 1 yard over the road, so they have to stop. And I hit this shot that just never leaves the flag. It just starts right, turns in a little bit, hits on that slope to the right. I thought he was going in. I mean, it lines up with the hole, and it just stopped like 3-4 feet behind the hole. And you hear, yeah, well done, well done, well done. As I'm putting my club back in the bag, this gentleman walks past me. He's probably 70, tweed cap, 5'5", something like that. He never broke stride, but he walked right past me and goes, "Nice hands." And kept walking on. That's St. Andrews.
It is the
That
description.
he's in.
That
he
guy's
knows
everywhere,
the game.
too.
He knows the game. Nice hands. I don't know if I've ever had anybody say that. Now, it was, because it was almost a perfect shot. But
Well, no, so you pitch
I
it.
love that.
Yeah,
You know,
no
that's
stop.